Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Mina and today's video is going to be my monthly wrap up. I make these videos to talk to you about all the books that I've read in the month, what I thought about them, how I rated them, if I would recommend them or not. Let's talk about stats. This month was a very interesting month. I read 13 books and my average rating for them was 3.7, 4 mafia romances, 3 fantasy books, 1 romance, 1 literary fiction, 1 romantasy, 1 memoir, and 2 historical fiction novels. This was a up and down month for me when it comes to reading. I went through phases where all I wanted to do was read. I had a couple of 5-star reads and then I had phases where I wasn't reading for a few days, which is not normal for me. Typically, I read for the entirety of the month and I typically only don't read on the weekends, but this month had some ups and downs. So I started the month reading Silent Lies by Neva Altaj and I gave Silent Lies 3.5 stars. Silent Lies follows this girl who marries a guy for a marriage of alliance, marriage of convenience situation. She is from a different mafia, so she marries him so she can give info to her Don about him and be a spy in his house. And for Darkest Sins, we follow this girl who basically saves this guy who ends up becoming her stalker. They end up having a situation going on, obviously, as one does in a dark romance, mafia romance situation. I read both of those books for the mafia romance video that I'm making, or that I did make this month. It's not up yet, but it will be at some point, and when it is, I will link it down below. I thought they were interesting. I think they probably were in the middle. If you really want to hear my full in-depth thoughts and opinions on these books, then I would watch the video when it comes out because I can't really say much about them now. I enjoyed them. They were okay. I read them on ebook because the covers of them are just so not what I want to be carrying in public. They were okay. Not my favorite, not my least favorite, but as far as mafia romances go, they gave me what needed to be given. And then for the same video, I read Make Me by Summer O'Toole, which I gave to 1 star. Which is my very first 1-star rating in a very long time, I feel like. I don't typically give very low ratings, but with Make Me, it basically follows this girl who watches one of her friends get unalived. She gets to see a little bit of the guy who unalived her friend, or she thinks she does, and so she decides to go undercover to try to get him to confess because the cops aren't following up as much as she would like them to. She asks them if it would be enough if he were to give her a confession that would put him behind bars, and they say yeah, so she ends up stalking him and he's stalking her and he knows that she suspects him and it's just a whole mess. Really didn't like it. The guy is really such a hot mess. The writing was a hot mess. I really didn't like any of the characters in the book. I didn't like the premise. I didn't like the spice. I just found it so nauseating. And like I said, if you want my full thoughts and in-depth opinions on this mess of a book, then I would watch the video when it comes out because definitely it's something interesting. It's I don't really know what else to say about the fact that that book really just traumatized me. That book really is not something I would ever want to go back to, I don't think. And the fact that it's a series, jail. Then I read Kingdom of the Feared by Kira Maniscalco, which is the 3rd book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series, and I gave that one a 3.75 stars. This was for another video, obviously, and I really liked it. I can't tell you much about it because, like I said, it's the last book in a series. Basically follows this girl who loses her twin, and she wants to find out why her twin was unalived and who unalived her and what's going on. So she ends up summoning the Prince of Wrath because she is a witch, and while she summons him, she binds him to her, and she doesn't know how strong that bind really is and how far it goes, and we just follow her as she goes through the underworld and meets all the other princes of hell. They're very good, a very good conclusion to the series in my opinion. I really like Kira Maniscalco's writing, and her books usually read very, very quickly for me, so I knew that that was going to be the case with this one as well. I read it over the course of a couple of days, I think, and I really like it. I think it's one of the more entertaining and fun romantasy books out there. So I will say though, there were a couple of scenes in there that had spice in them that I didn't understand why they were in there. That's the one thing I really didn't like about this book, is how much spice there was and how often the spice was portrayed throughout the book, because there were some scenes that the spice happened that I was like, I don't see the need for this to be in here. So yeah, that's the only gripe that I have with that book, but otherwise a very good book in my opinion. First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and I gave that one a 4.5 stars. This book follows a woman and she has a daughter who calls in a love hotline radio show, and she talks to this man, his name is Aiden, and she tells him that she is trying to help her mom to go out there and date because it's been 12 years or something like that, and her mother hasn't really been dating anybody, hasn't been seeing anybody, her whole life is just her and her daughter. Because she goes viral, Lucy goes on the show and they try to make it like Lucy's trip to love or something like that, and we just watch her fall in love with Aiden and watch Aiden fall in love with her. I really liked the book. The only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because I really had a lot of trouble with Aiden as a male love interest, because he was giving her nothing, it feels like, and he was so traumatized and so scared from the way that his family lived their lives and stuff that has happened when he was younger. I feel like could have been solved had he just gone to therapy. Like, you're a grown adult. I don't see why we're still struggling with something so simple that could be solved so easily just by you working through it. And instead he wasn't working through it, and he was just giving her such a hard time, and Lucy deserved the world in my opinion. So yeah, I also read this for a video. I will link it down below. All the videos that I will talk about in this video and all the books that I will talk about this video, if the video for them is already out, I will link them down below. I don't think there's a singular book that I read this month that wasn't for a video. So all of these, you'll be able to find my full in-depth thoughts somewhere on my channel. So yeah, I just really didn't like Aiden, and I wished he would have just worked on himself a little bit more and given our main character a little bit more. But other than that, I really like the romance. I really like watching two people fall for each other, even though they feel like they can't and they shouldn't, but they do anyways. I find it delicious and I always love it, and I really enjoyed my time with the book. But then, for the same video, I read 2 other very excellent books. I read The Favorites by Lane Fargo. Oh my god, delicious. I gave that one a 5 stars. This book follows the story of this girl and this guy who are basically figure skating, ice skating champions, legends, if you will. I picked this book up just because I heard so many people talk about it and heard about how they can't put it down ever, and when they pick it up they just feel like they need to keep reading because it's so good. And people even compared it, I saw it being compared to Magnolia Parks, to Gossip Girl, because of how addictive it is, and low-key the cover gives me Gossip Girl vibes, so I understand that comparison. When I picked this book up, I did not expect to adore it as much as I did. This was my first 5 stars of the month, and I had the best time reading it. It is so entertaining. It's so good. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know where have you been or why you haven't fallen for the hype yet. Please fall for the hype, because it is such an entertaining book. I could not put it down. When I put it down, I was thinking about it. When I wasn't thinking about it, I was listening to the audiobook. When I wasn't listening to the audiobook, I was reading the actual physical book. I could not get myself to put it down because of how much I enjoyed it and how much I adored the characters. And every time you reach a certain point where you're like, okay, I have to put this book down and go do something with my day, it ends on a cliffhanger that makes you want to pick it back up again and see just where it's going to go. It's told in Katerina's point of view, which is the main girl, in transcripts of interviews in like a documentary style Netflix situation where other people are talking about certain situations that happen. You get to watch that specific situation happen from the main character's point of view and how she felt during it. And I thought it was done so deliciously and so well. When I tell you this is probably my favorite book of the month, I mean it, because it is so incredibly good and I had the best time reading it. And I don't think any other book is going to compare to it. It's probably going to be like one of my favorite books of the year. And it's only March, which is crazy to say. But I definitely recommend it. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know where have you been, but it's time to get to it. And then finally, for that same video, I read Rebel Witch by Kristen, and this book is the second book in the Crimson Moth duology, the finale, if you will. This follows a witch and a witch hunter who fall in love, and we get to watch them struggle through their feelings and watch them struggle because they really can't be together. Like, the guy's family, he is the witch hunter, the guy's family has been severely affected by witches to like the worst extent, and she is being hunted just because of who she is. And so we get to watch them struggle with the two sides of them, the side that wants the other person and then the side that can't be with the other person because of all the history and all the pain that they've brought each other and in each other's lives. Delicious, so good. This is such a good continuation of the duology. I remember reading Crimson Moth last year and absolutely devouring it in one sitting and thinking that Gideon is one of the best book boyfriends there is. This book low-key felt like nothing but fan service for the fans of Crimson Moth. Did I even tell you what I gave this book? I gave it a 4.5 stars. The only reason why I didn't give it a 5 stars is because it felt a little bit repetitive of the first book, and also because I felt like it was mostly just fan service for the fans. Like, some things happened in the book where I was like, why is this happening right now? Because it doesn't fit in the story. It just fits that you wanted to put this trope in here, and now it's in here, and I appreciate that it's in there. So it's not like that I'm mad that it's in there, but some things I was just like, I wish we would have focused more on the plot, because it feels like at some point we lost the plot and we focused on Gideon and Rune versus the plot, which the plot was so interesting, and I feel like by the end we just lost the plot and we just focused so much on the characters and them as a couple that the last 25 pages and the last bit of the plot felt a little bit rushed to me, and I feel like we came to the end of the book in such a rushed way that I feel like I didn't get to see everything play out to the way that it could have. So that's the only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars, but I really did enjoy it, and I really love the scenes that she gave us in the book because I adore Rune and Gideon. So this is not me complaining and saying that I wish there'd been less romance, because that's never going to be something that I say, but I do wish that we had gotten a bit more of the plot, and the ending was so interesting and could have been so much more interesting had she just given it the time that it needed instead of rushing through it just to give us the romance. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me know down below if you agree with me or not. Stolen Heir by Sophie Lark, which I gave to 3.75 stars. This was also for the Mafia romance video, and this is the blueprint of Mafia romances in my opinion. This and some other books that I talk about in the same video, I really enjoyed it. This follows the story of Miko and Nessa. Miko is a part of a mafia, and Nessa's family basically unalives his father figure in his life, and so he decides to kidnap Nessa and keep her in his mansion. And it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. She's a ballerina, he's like this rough, gruff man, and they end up falling in love because obviously, as one does. I really like this one. I think it's really done very well. I think that Sophie Lark has such a way in writing a mafia romance that keeps you interested, and also I say it in the video as well, but I will say it here again, these books have illustrations in them, which I so appreciate because it makes me feel like I understand the story a little bit more. It helps me understand the scenes a little bit more if I'm not on the right path of imagining a specific scene the way that the author intended for it to be imagined. The illustrations usually will bring me to that imagination, so we're on the same page and it makes sense. I really liked it. I think it's one of the more well done mafia romances, and I definitely do recommend it. 3.75 stars is not a bad rating at all. That probably was my favorite mafia romance that I read in that specific video, so I really had a lot of fun reading it, and I read it very quickly, which also happened with the first book in the series as well. So thumbs up. Really like that one. I don't have much to say about it just because, like, it's a mafia romance. It's very much straightforward. While You Were Out, an intimate family portrait of mental illness in an era of silence by Meg Kissinger. And this is a book that I read for the Badges video. I liked it. It's interesting. I didn't give it a rating just because I felt like I can't really rate a biography or like a memoir just because I feel like that's a person's story and I can't really put a rating on it. It just kind of feels off. It was very well written. It follows the story of Meg and her family and their life as they grow up in this huge family and how many people they lose due to mental illnesses that aren't paid attention to, specifically at the time that she was growing up, because she is a lot older than I am. So I can only imagine growing up in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s when mental health wasn't really as recognized as it is now, or wasn't really paid attention to at the time. Just watching her lose as many people as she did and watch her and her family struggle so much and not get the help that they need was so interesting. And it's crazy that it's a real story and that this is somebody's life. So that's why I feel like I can't really give a rating to it, just because it's so devastating to read about her losing so many people in her life and reading about her going through all these episodes where she's clearly struggling with something and her mother's clearly struggling with something and her father and her siblings, but none of them really know how to put a name or like what name to put to it or how to get help for it. And so they end up doing a lot of drastic things that make you just feel so sad for them, because it's so sad that at some point mental health wasn't really as recognized as something so important and was really just ridiculed and treated as if it's like you're weak if you feel like you're depressed or something. And I thought it was very, very interesting. It was very well written, and I am very, very glad that I had read it and spent some time with it, because I think it was very good. Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, which I gave to 5 stars because that is one of my favorite duologies of all time. This is a As You Like It Shakespeare retelling in Shanghai in 1930s. There's a bunch of chemical killings going around in the city, and these two people from two very different areas of life, they get put together to be fake married and get hired in this company that they think is involved somehow in the chemical killings, and they pretend to be married, and they go in as this newly hired, newlywed couple, and they have to play nice with everybody and try to figure out where these chemical killings are coming from, if somebody in the office is maybe helping with the chemical killings or has something to do with it. And it's very, very interesting. I really love this duology so much. If you read the These Violent Delights duology, then this one follows in the same universe, and this is a Shakespeare retelling because Chloe Gong is a Shakespeare nerd, and that I say that very, very fondly. She makes me want to read Shakespeare. So I read the first book, which I adore. I read it in April of 2023. I really, really adored it at the time and also gave it 5 stars, and I loved it so much. And when I picked it up again this time, I think I might have been in a reading slump or some situation or other. I felt like I didn't really want to read anything, and also so much was happening in my life. I just had a very slow start with Foul Lady Fortune this time around, but once I really picked it up and sat down and paid attention to it, I really loved it, and I flew through it. And obviously I gave it 5 stars, so I obviously very, very much enjoyed it once again. And to read a book twice in 2 different times of your life and give them a 5 stars both times says a lot to me. So after reading that one, I reread it so I can read the second book and the final book in the duology, which was Foul Heart Huntsman, and I gave that one a 4 stars, so not a 5 stars, but pretty close. I really liked it. I obviously can't tell you much about it because it follows the events that happen in Foul Lady Fortune, and it's a continuation and the finale to the duology, and it has this specific trope that I absolutely adore and love so much, and I can't tell you what it is either because it's something that will give away the entire plot of the second book. So I definitely recommend you read it. I love Chloe Gong and I love her writing, and I read These Violent Delights and enjoyed it and loved it, and I am thinking of rereading it. And then I also obviously reread Foul Lady Fortune this year and still gave it a 5 stars. I definitely see myself rereading them again. So sorry. I love to reread a book that is one of my favorites. You know, I'm just that person. I'm a nostalgic person for my favorites. After that, I started another video and I read I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, which I gave to a good old 5 stars. I love Ruta Sepetys, the woman that she is a historical fiction author, and I adore every single work that she has ever released. She released I Must Betray You, which is a story about the young kids struggling in Romania under the communism that they were under back then. They are going through communism and they are living so secluded from the rest of the world, and we follow a bunch of young people as they struggle and find their way through a life where you feel like you can't trust anyone and you're always being watched, and everybody that you trust could be the person telling the government about you. The main guy is caught with something that he's not supposed to be caught with, and so he ends up being recruited to become a spy himself, and we just watch him deal with the consequences of knowing that his family don't even know that he's a spy, or his friends don't know that he's a spy, and every time he's doing something with all these people, becoming friends with these specific people, he is untrustworthy, and we get to watch him struggle and come to grasp the idea that he is the one telling the government all these things that are happening. And the ending of it really shook me. I really loved it. I love Ruta Sepetys so much for creating a world so just beautiful to the point where it makes you want to do research about what you just read about. And every time I read a book of hers, I end up doing research of something that she wrote about because I'm so interested in the reality of everything that she wrote about. So 5 stars, really loved it, really adored it. And then for the same video, I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, which unfortunately was a dud for me. I gave it a 3.75 stars. Honestly, I really liked the writing and I really liked the world building and I really liked the characters. I don't know if I was just in a reading slump and I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have or as much as I wanted to, but I just really didn't find myself clicking with it. It felt very long and I wish that R.F. Kuang had shortened it a little bit more. Mind you, this is coming from someone who read Babel and enjoyed every part of it. So I don't know why I was just not clicking with the way that it was written. I can obviously continue it on. It's a 500-page book and I read the entirety of the thing. So obviously there was a bit of enjoyment for me in there, but I don't know that I would continue on with the rest of the series as it is right now. So let me know down below if that series is one of your favorites. I know one of my friends was talking to me about it and she said that it is one of her favorite series of all time. That's what she goes to when she's in a reading slump. So I don't know, that maybe it just found me at the wrong time at the wrong place. Let me know if you think I should give it a second chance and maybe read it a little bit further down in my life and give it another chance at another point, because I feel like it deserves a lot more than 3.5 because I think the story is enjoyable. I just, for some reason, was not clicking with it. So that's unfortunate that I ended my month that way. And I spent like maybe 8 to 9 days reading that book, believe it or not. And I could not for the life of me believe that it took me that long to read a 500-page book when usually it would take me a maximum of 3 days. So I don't know, maybe it was a reading slump. Maybe I just need to reread it at a different point in my life. So as I told you, I mean, I started it with mafia romances and then ended it with historical fiction. So a very interesting month of reading. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I had a couple of 5 stars, had some that were 1 stars. So it was very, you know, one extreme and then the other, and I had a lot of fun reading all these books. Let me know down below what books you read this month, what books you are looking forward to reading next month. I'm very, very excited for April because it's a month of absolute banger after banger of book releases. So I will see you in one video or another where I pick up one of those banger releases. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have the very best day. Treat yourself to something nice, and I will see you guys again next week with another video. Goodbye!